Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge, where everything we do is home cooked and prepared with love from our own little kitchen here. Yet another perfect technical launch. As I sit here by myself in my USB powered room. Last show we did, the audio sounded a little muddy. Does this sound okay to everybody? Any takers on that? I see a comment that says robot voice. I hope that's a question. I don't know. This is the wonderful world of USB, which I've never understood, but nevertheless, it seems to change every time I do it. Let me just check. Just to be sure. I know this is fascinating, riveting stuff. It sounds okay. We'll try and fix this. Hang on a second, please. People are saying refreshed, but it's this is not. I'm just about out. Of try and hear it for myself here. It sounds a little bit better. Okay. All right. So if you guys refresh, you will probably have the full experience. And hi, everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. Yet another perfect technical launch for a perfect technical studio. I'm Bill Whittle here, your host, and we actually sounded better. All right, rip, float, pass. I don't know. Refresh if I sound like a hamster. Let me rephrase that. If I sound more like a hamster, I think I always sound like a hamster. Anyway, we're back. So, hi, everybody. We're back from a little trip to Savannah where I spoke to a small group of people about how to beat the left in arguments. And they liked it so much, they're going to try and get me to talk to the Freedom Caucus about this. Because, okay, Phil says 5x5, I trust Phil. I trust Phil because Phil's an audio engineer who engineered some of the finest planetarium shows in history. And if he says it's 5x5, then by golly, that's what I'm going to go with. So anyway, yeah, so I went and did an event in Savannah for a small group of people, a bunch of lawyers actually. And I basically talked about how to beat the left. Now, these guys are involved with election integrity, but fully half of what I spent talking about was how the left frames argument and how if you accept the terms of the argument that they place, then you're going to lose before you get started. I've talked about most of these things before, but just as a sort of a warm-up while we let people kind of settle in and get your sandwiches ready and prepare yourself for a nice sleepy evening. Basically, the point I was trying to make, and I am going to turn this, I'm always talking about turning things into a firewall. I was going to do a firewall on the Crowder thing. In fact, I was going to write it today, and I just thought, I don't need to continue to pour fuel on this thing. I just don't. I just want it to go away. So anyway, here's what I was talking about. So I got a lot of this from Andrew Breitbart, at least not so much the specifics as the attitude. I was pretty close to Andrew. I wasn't on his inner circle, which was his family and closest friends, but I was in the next circle out, Jeremy and I and a few other people. And he had an uncanny ability to spot the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And that is this. The left, Evan Sayet had this term coined, and I think it's an excellent term. He said the left has rhetorical intelligence. That's the only thing they're good at. They're very good at that, though. And so they construct arguments in such a way that if you enter the argument the way that it's set up, you lose. So for those of you who haven't heard these two legendary stories, here are two examples of Andrew Breitbart's ability to see the trap before he walks into it and simply just not go into the kill box. He was, this is in the first days of the Tea Party, he was on some mainstream media show. They had a picture, which I'm sure was manufactured by the left because I never once saw it, anything like it. And usually when we find out that there's some kind of hate crime, it almost always turns out to be manufactured by somebody on the left who's trying to convince everybody that we're racist. And since there's no evidence that they're racist, instead of thinking, well, maybe they're not racist, they make up the evidence. So that kind of thing. So there was a picture of a Tea Party event, and there was a picture of Obama, photoshopped Obama. I'm pretty sure it was Obama with a bone through his nose kind of thing, like an African tribesman. And it was a real offensive picture. And so they basically said, well, Andrew, it's a Tea Party rally. What do you think of this picture? Do you approve of this? And anybody else would have gone and said, no, of course I don't approve of it. I find it reprehensible. And it's over, right? Because he would have owned it, and now it's just a question of mopping up. But Breitbart didn't do that. Breitbart said, why are you asking me this question? Why aren't you asking any of the other guests on your panel this question? Because I didn't make that sign, and they didn't either. So why are you asking me? Done, right? Done. Okay. He did pretty much the same thing on a separate occasion. He was being interviewed on C-SPAN. His book had just come out. And he was answering questions. The moderator said, so Andrew, in your book, you talk about your struggles with alcohol, and I don't remember if he said drug abuse. I think he said alcohol. You talk very plainly and openly about your struggles with alcohol when you were younger. What do we talk about? And before the guy could finish the sentence, Breitbart said, why are you asking me about this? 2 weeks ago, you were interviewing Barack Obama, President of the United States, who writes extensively in his biography about his marijuana use and his cocaine use. So why are you asking me this and not him? And again, he just plain didn't walk into the kill zone. And so he wins. The best thing I ever saw about Andrew Breitbart, I was there when it happened. I wasn't in the crowd, but I was at the event. There was a group of people outside after him specifically, a large group, angry people, angry leftists. If there's any other kind, I'd love to see the receipts. And they were basically outside screaming for his blood. And so he decided to go out and talk to him. But what he did was, and this is all you need to know about Andrew Breitbart. I love that guy. I really love him and I miss him. He went out to talk to them, all right, but he went out to them on roller skates. He roller skated right out into the middle of them and just started talking. And 20 minutes later, he took them all out for pizza or something like that, converted. So that ability to get above the maze and look down rather than be in the maze and wonder what's going on, that's the key to winning this thing. And this is the advice that I want to give to the Freedom Caucus and to anybody else who will listen. So it's going to end up in a video. But basically, here are some examples of how the left constructs an argument that we can't win and how to win. So I think I came up with 4 examples. In fact, if you give me 1 second, let me just grab my notes. I'm pretty sure they're right here. Give me 1 second. Get it right. Hang on a second. Talk amongst yourselves. Nothing to see here. Just another day in the magic wonderland of the internet. Hey, come on. Yes. I think. Yeah. So, for those of you out there who are interested in the inside baseball details, when I do a speaking event, depending on how much time I have to do, I will do a small set of notes. But this is basically what I have for for an hour. If I'm going to do an hour, in this particular case, I had a lot of examples, 3 of those. And so these things get me on the topic and then keeps me on the rails. Eric Blake is constantly saying, stay on target, and he's right. So so this is how I stay on target. So here are 4 examples of how the left traps us and how we can untrap ourselves. Let's start with the most recent one. Several months ago, the President of the United States got on television in front of Independence Hall and said that anybody who voted for Donald Trump was a threat to our democracy. That these MAGA Republicans, that would be, I'm a multi-MAGA Republican. But basically, he said, anybody who voted for Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. It's a threat to our democracy in danger. Our democracy is at risk. This is just before the midterms. What are we going to do to protect our democracy? I think he said democracy 13 times in that speech. And so what does the Republican political leadership do? They basically, or the talking heads, they basically say, we're not a threat to the democracy. You're the threat to democracy. No, we're not. It's you're the threat to this democracy. No. Just having free speech is not a threat to democracy. The threat to democracy is this. And we talk back and forth. We say the word democracy 250 times. And then I would ask you, just off the top of your head, which one of the 2 parties sounds most like democracy? If the entire argument about the soul of America is whether or not we are a threat to the democracy, then who do you think owns that ground? I'm going to go with the Democratic Party on this one. So that's what we did, and that's why we lose, right? We started arguing about whether or not Trump supporters were a threat to the democracy. What we should have done is the second that this speech was over, somebody in the Republican Party who had a bit of a platform should have gotten right up there and said, look, before we go and say another word, let's get something completely clear. We are not a democracy. We are a republic. You would think that the President of the United States would know that we're a republic, but I'm not entirely sure he remembers taking the oath anyway. So let me just tell you about a republic. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. What's the difference? Well, a republic is much better. It's much, much better than a democracy. Why? Because a republic guarantees you rights that cannot be voted away. Right? In a republic, you cannot vote a group of people into a death camp or into a housing complex. You can't vote them into poverty. You can't vote them into riches. In a democracy, you can vote for anything you want to, and the German people voted themselves into Adolf Hitler. That's what they did. They voted for him, and that was the end of that. A republic, on the other hand, has protection. So, best way to think of it is, to use this old saw, a democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep arguing about what's for dinner. How do you think that's going to work out? A republic is 2 wolves and a sheep arguing about what's for dinner. And when the wolves say the sheep is for dinner, then the republic says, no. You don't get to kill the sheep just because you outvote him. That sheep has rights. That sheep has inviolable rights that were given to that sheep before this republic was even founded. It has rights given to it by God, and you don't get to kill that sheep just because you have the votes. That's what a republic is. And that's why a republic is so much better